McLean. I'm talking to you today a little bit about macrobiotics and what that is. The word itself means big life, or living one's greatest life. However, it has ancient origins. In fact, it can be traced back to Hippocrates, the founder of Western medicine, who, in that understanding, was more the way of longevity and health. So it includes the principles of health and long life, and incorporates a number of principles that distinguishes it from other more transient approaches to health. For example, we sometimes talk about the various harmonies that exist, and the first harmony we start with is harmony with the universe, or harmony with the order in the universe that manifests through nature and expresses through the seasonal rotation and what grows locally in our environment and that type of thing. The order of the universe is the principle that everything has a centre. For example, in our solar system, the sun stays steady while the planets go around it. There's chaos when that principle is reversed. If the sun went around the planets, it doesn't quite work. The same with the cellular understanding in the DNA. We have a nucleus of the cell. The electrons go around that. So there's this principle of the centre, reflected in religious and spiritual practices by that position, bringing things together into harmony. This also includes the idea of yin and yang, or the principle of balancing opposites. So when we take that principle down to the food level, and also the energy level, we see that within the body, firstly, that there's these opposite systems or opposite qualities that when balanced, we naturally have great health, and also on an emotional and mental level as well. One system you could look at is the cardiovascular system, or the heart, and its circulatory expression. For example, the heart is a pump, and it continuously pumps. It goes back and forth, and back and forth. We know if there's too much inward pressure and can't release, that could create a hypertension or a high blood pressure. On the other hand, if there's too much release, flaccidity, looseness, and can't gather, we could call that a weak heart. So there's this idea of this middle principle that continuously moves. The same with the blood system. We have white blood cells, we have red blood cells, and health is the balance, or getting the correct number of both. If one increases unnaturally, then we can see various sicknesses arise. So throughout the body there's these things. If we're too hot or if we're too cold, there's a middle place. And food contributes significantly to that middle place, that place of harmony and balance. We talk about yin and yang. Yang is a contracting energy, a tightening, hardening energy, which in the emotional area of life would represent becoming frustrated and angry and forceful. On the inside, we know that is more expanding, loosening, weakening, going out. If we have too much of that, we can feel weak, tired, depressed, deflated. So there's, again, in the emotional level, there's this middle place where we feel happy, we feel vitality and energy. So how macrobiotics distinguishes itself from other dietary systems is this deep understanding of balance and harmony through the body's systems. There are foods that contribute to the contracted state, there are foods that contribute to an overexpanded state, and then there's this middle place, this place of harmony, like a seesaw. If we go too far up one end of the seesaw tips one way. And to make balance, to bring this other end up, we've got to run all the way back to the end and bring it up. So too in the food kingdom, there are the foods that create this excess contracted state, anger, tension, and then there are foods we naturally get, if we get into that place, we naturally get attracted to foods to create balance. For a while we find the middle, like going up the end of the seesaw, but then it'll tip there. So a lot of times people are on this dramatic movement of running one end of the scale to the other, which creates this dramatic movement in our body, which eventually things wear out if we give it too much work to do on that level in extremes. So we say in a macrobiotic approach, avoid extremes and come to the middle. The middle where we, like on the middle of a seesaw, where there's a much smoother, even movement. So naturally that's where the understanding of whole grains being the most centred food, being the principle of the centre, and then supplementary foods, vegetables, sea vegetables, legumes, fish, etc. So in this talk I'm just talking about some general principles that exist within macrobiotics. Within yin and yang is an expression of how nature and the universe works, the principle of opposites, man, woman, summer, winter, fire, water, harmonising with that, how it manifests in our body. But then there are other principles such as harmonising with our environment. For example, where we live. If we look around our local environment, you know, within a 100, 200, 300 mile radius of where we live, we can see certain plants. Whereas if we go 1,000 miles, we'll see a different type of food. Modernisation means that we can take foods from other climatic environmental zones and eat them daily here. Well, it's almost common sense to see that if we did that, then we'd lose connection and harmony with our current environment by eating foods outside, to bring our body into balance. Not only do we harmonise with yin and yang, but what grows naturally in our environment. Then it's about understanding the principle of whole foods, and also the type of work we do, what our orientation, what our dreams and goals are, and the understanding of what foods will help us get there more quickly and easily. As I always say, that health is the realisation of all your goals without force or struggle. So when we naturally harmonise with the way nature intended us to live and eat, things come naturally and easily to us. This is just a brief talk. Thank you for listening.